So welcome everyone. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Marc-Andre Pigeon, or Marc-Andre Pigeon, and I'm the Director of the Canadian Centre for the Study of Co-operatives. Before we begin today, and I think appropriately given the topic of co-op summer camps, which happen on the land, I want to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from Treaty 6 territory, and this is the land of the Cree, the Saulteaux, the Dene, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota, and of course it's also the home of the traditional homeland of the Métis. We're grateful for this opportunity to work on this land, to attend summer camp if we had that opportunity, share in its bounty, reflect on its beauty, and reaffirm our commitment to the shared, necessary, and important work of reconciliation, both in universities and in the cooperative sector. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today and my colleague, Stan Yu. Now, Stan has been the Research and Communication Coordinator here at the Center since 2020. And he's led many of our research initiatives, including our annual top co-op survey, which is out in the field right now. And that asks credit union cooperative and credit union leaders what are their most important challenges, what they think are the most important challenges facing the sector. What we now call our triannual cooperative governance survey. We just finished concluding that survey back in October. And we're writing up the results on governance practices in cooperatives and credit unions. And then, so Stan's been leading those two things. And then there was one substantial but an important ad hoc kind of survey where we surveyed employees at some co-ops in Saskatchewan to understand whether they actually have shopping behavior that aligns with their employment, basically, and their membership in the cooperative movement. So that's a bit about Stan in his official capacity, but outside of his work, Stan has been a volunteer and board member of Bridge City Bicycle Co-op for more than 10 years. And if you don't know about Bridge City Bike Co-op, you really should. It's an amazing space that repairs bicycles, donates bicycles, and provides education to anyone and everyone in Saskatoon. I volunteer there, and there's nothing like seeing a young person eyes light up when you help them with a bike or get them a bike. It's really, really wonderful. So in a moment, Stan is going to share with all of you some results of our cooperative youth education programs alumni survey about these co-op camps. And we wrapped that up this summer. And these camps for over a century, 1,000 years, thousands of young people from across the country really participated in these youth co-op camps. In some cases, like Saskatchewan, I believe these have been running for almost going on 100 years, as I just noted. So the question that's kind of asked in this survey is, what effect did these programs have, these co-op camps have on the lives of the youth who were attending them? Did they have any enduring impact? Did they foster lifelong cooperators? So these are the questions that Stan's going to kind of be addressing, that he says kept them up at night, but in a good way, I think. And that's what we're going to hear from Stan about today. So just one last note on that. Stan partnered with co-op associations, I believe from Ontario West. And didn't see a lot from Atlantic Canada or Quebec, but for sure those Ontario kind of West. And we're going to share those findings in a minute. Before I turn things over to Stan, just a brief word on our co-op conversation series. Normally, I might engage in a couple of conversations with Stan. In this case, I probably will jump to breakout right away. And that'll be an opportunity for you to kind of just reflect on Stan's talk and answer a question where I'll bring up at the end of Stan's talk for you to discuss. So it's a great opportunity to kind of network a little bit, stitch those kind of communities of interests across Canada, and really great if you can participate. So if anyone's experiencing technical difficulties through any time during this webinar, you can message Dasha Guliak. Dasha, if you can wave to folks, and she'll be able to help you out with that. And then we're going to be recording this session. So the link will be shared with anyone who registered for the event, and we'll mail that out later after the talk. So Stan, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Marc-Andre, for the warm introduction. And it's really nice to see a lot of folks, a lot of familiar faces, some new faces as well. As Marc-Andre mentioned, I'm Stan, and I work here at the Canadian Centre for the Study of Co-operatives. Had the pleasure of working on this project for the last year. Just going to quickly share my screen here before I officially begin my talk. Can anyone see just the slideshow here as opposed to my presenter view? We tested it out. I think it's good to go, but if it's not, do let me know. Seeing no objections? Excellent. I'll continue on. So really, this project began as kind of a wider, larger question that me and
Stan,
Mark
just
Hunter.
to interrupt you
Yes.
really quickly, it looks like we're seeing presenter view or some strange
Ah,
view, just so
okay.
you know.
Thank you very much.
If
Let
you could
me
reset
just,
that.
I could do that. Thank you. Let me just try that again.
I had the
Okay.
same issue. I feel like something has changed on maybe an updated PowerPoint, but it defaulted to that view recently too.
So if I swap displays now, how's that?
I don't
Yeah,
see anything yet, so
sorry about that. It's fitting that I'm usually working on the tech side of things, and when I do the talk, I have the tech problems.
this is where I would say, send it to me, Stan, and I'll make it work. It looks good. This looks good, Stan.
Thank you very much. Karma, karma, everyone. Okay, so as I was mentioning, part of the larger conversation that really was derived from our annual top co-op issue survey, which finds every year for the last 9 years that awareness of cooperatives is the top challenge identified by Canadian cooperative leaders from coast to coast. Years ago, when Marc Andre started talking about awareness, for me, what was really the question that continues to keep me up at night is, who are the folks that know about cooperatives? Who are the champions of cooperatives and who aren't? We started trying to take chip away at that question with looking at, cooperative employees. Do they shop at co-ops? Are they the champions of co-ops? And we did a study there a couple of years ago. The other category of individuals I have talked to over the course of my time here at the center are folks that have gone through youth programs. And we have heard many stories of success within amongst these programs, folks that have gone on to be lifelong cooperators. I'll show you an example or two in a second here. But the larger question remains in terms of like throughout all of these decades and decades of co-op camps and other co-op youth education programs. Later on, for alumni, are these folks the champions of the cooperative sector? If so, what are the implications? If not, what are those implications? So within that context, we set out to really find some data, measure this, and try to find some explanation, some answers, some responses to this question in terms of whether alumni are of these camps, of these programs, are currently engaged with the cooperative sector, and as well, to what extent did the camps and the experiences of participating in these camps have a lasting impact on their lives, if any. So, for folks that are unfamiliar, although I'm sure most on this call have had some experience with camps in the past or have heard about them, these camps take place. Usually, it's a week-long program or a multi-day program or a day-long program at a lake or at out in nature somewhere away from cities. Youth age ranges around like early preteen to late teens, and these cohorts that are grouped in ages participate in both outdoor activities, social activities, games, opportunities to develop public speaking, personal development, the community that's built from youth that attend these camps have been identified as like a really magic sauce of the camps, as well as underlying all of those activities that are both fun, educational, experiential, is the thread of teaching about cooperative values and the cooperative model. As I mentioned before, throughout my time at the center, I've heard some prominent leaders in the cooperative sector, in their public talks or meeting them, saying that they were at first and foremost a camper. And that gave them their first exposure to the cooperative model. And from there, that seed blossomed into becoming a leader today. From If we go from the top left all the way to the bottom right, we have Mitchell Anderson, a good friend of mine who was a minister in the city of Saskatoon, also former chair of Affinity Credit Union, the largest credit union here in Saskatoon, and he was the chair of the board for over 10 years. Lou Hammond Kettleson, former director of the Canadian Centre for the Study of Co-operatives, mentioned that she was also a camper to start. I met Jennifer Fosen, bottom left in Edmonton a few weeks ago. She is in communications for one of the local co-ops within the cooperative retailing system, as well. Mentioned that co-op camps changed her life and kind of led her to her path today. And of course, Scott Banda, bottom right, former CEO of Federated Cooperatives Limited and current chancellor of the University of Saskatchewan, in many of his interviews also mentioned that he was a camper and then subsequently he was a counselor at camp. So again, all of these success stories we hear, we know that not everyone is these types of exceptions. These are absolute top 1% of lifelong cooperative leaders, cooperative champions. I was also interested in who are the folks in the middle, who might not be serving on boards of co-ops or working within a credit union or a cooperative, but on a day-to-day basis, they are a member of a co-op and they shop at a co-op for their groceries most of their time. They seek out, purchasing their goods and services from the sector as opposed to from multinational corporations. Those are success stories as well. I want to gauge and measure the gamut of what that engagement could look like, and whether camp plays a part in guiding them to becoming those champions. All of this leading to a research opportunity, chatting with provincial associations and co-op camp program coordinators from Ontario all the way to BC, as Marc-Andre mentioned. And I do want to take this opportunity to thank all of those folks who I had the chance to work with, all of the provincial association liaisons, anywhere ranging from executive directors to youth program coordinators. They were incredibly helpful and as passionate as I was with regards to his research, very supportive as well. So essentially, we were interested in looking at a national survey to reach alumni and to see, to measure the questions that we have been talking about all along. To summarize again, to what extent are they alumni of these programs currently engaged with the cooperative sector within their personal and professional lives? And what was their perceived long-term impact of the programs that they participated in? So within the research, how we proceeded with the research, partnerships were made with the provincial associations, and we developed a survey collaboratively. This was an online survey that was distributed throughout the data collection phase. We found out that record keeping of alumni for these associations and programs was definitely a challenging area. Knowing that some of these programs have been offered for decades, and communication methods have changed so much and evolved so much, folks that even had robust data keeping only had data from maybe 2005 on. Unfortunately, also with the evolution of technology, whereas some alumni contact information was once kept in on paper, the migration from paper all the way to digital, all the way to cloud storage was also one where it was a gap. It requires extensive capacity and effort, and with a lot of limited budget and a lot lot of different priorities within the provincial associations, alumni database management was seen as a gap. And so we had to distribute the survey through various methods. Some we did have mailing lists for. And some we had to use through social media, newsletters, and we also found too that during this time, word of mouth really did travel. And so through the data collection process, I personally saw some very impassioned testimonials on LinkedIn or on Facebook, asking folks that were also alums of this program to participate because this individual was uh, kind of made their testimonial was so powerful and so inspiring in terms of what camp did for them, and they were encouraging others to do so. Overall, we had 312 respondents participate, which I do understand is only a fraction of the alumni population. So this is a small study that kind of chips away at looking at the research question with the understanding that, identifying the population for us to be able to properly survey was kind of the main challenge of the research itself. With that said, it is a small sample, and I do want to also mention that very likely, there is a self-selection bias here. Pretty logical that folks that had a great experience with camp they were probably more likely going to participate as opposed to folks that did not have a good experience at camp. With all of that being said, though, these are some of the findings from the survey that I'm excited to share. So in terms of looking at the demographics of folks that participated, we saw that a pretty healthy distribution of of participants or of alumni within the programs, all the way from Ontario to BC. On the left-hand side, you see the Youth Excellence Societies from BC, 17%, Alberta Co-op Youth Leadership Program, 23%, Camp Kindling or the Saskatchewan Cooperative Youth Program in Saskatchewan, 29%. Unfortunately, a little lower in Manitoba, but 21% from Ontario. Alumni of the Cooperative Young Leaders Program, and 7% had attended a youth program outside of those main staples here in Canada. And then subsequently, we also asked them about what decade they attended camp, and we find that essentially most of our respondents are millennial aged. And here are some preliminary findings. So, with regards to professional engagement, to what extent are alums currently engaged with the sector professionally? We see that about a fifth of our respondents currently work for a cooperative or credit union. Of those, typically these folks have worked for about 11 years, so quite long-standing careers. And although, you know, at first glance, fifth might not seem like a lot. However, when we asked how many cooperatives have they worked for in the past, we found that actually 4 in 10, co-op camp, co-op youth program alumni have worked for at least one or more credit co-ops and credit unions in the past, which, in my opinion, that's quite a bit. We also asked whether they have served on a committee and or board of directors for a cooperative or credit union as kind of a service. This would be kind of volunteer, professional kind of engagement, and we found that a quarter of our respondents have served on a board or committee within the sector, and on average, they have served for about 8 years. So again, what we're seeing here is long-standing commitment of those that have professional engagement within the sector. Next, we looked at personal engagement. This is kind of how are you a member of a co-op? Do you bank at a credit union, et cetera, et cetera? We'll first look at, to what extent do youth program alumni bank at a credit union in comparison to the big six banks such as Scotiabank, Royal Bank, Bank of Montreal, etc. And we found that 50% of the respondents primarily bank at a credit union. When asked how many co-ops alumni are members of, we found that over 60% are members of at least two or more cooperatives, while near 30% members of one, and only 11% are not members of any cooperatives. We also asked how often do folks purchase groceries at a co-op? In this chart, you'll see that there is a mixture of responses, with a third saying about some, close to a third saying most to all, and also close to a third saying none to very little. So a bit of a split. Again, at first glance, this might seem like a tepid, lukewarm result. However, when we further delved into the data, we found that geography or access to the goods and services provided by cooperatives played a big role. So when we parse the data into alumni from the prairie provinces, where groceries is much more readily available, in relation to alumni from other provinces, we found that close to 50% of alums from the prairie provinces purchased most or all of their groceries at a co-op, while only 4% of alums from the other provinces said the same. Quite a stark difference there. So access does play a big role here. Lastly, we also asked about the impact of camp in kind of the alumni's own kind of self-rating, whether camp helped them to pursue a career path, a different career path, an education path, encourage them to pursue leadership roles. And we found that over 80% believe that camp inspired them to pursue leadership roles. 60% said that camp influenced their career path. 50% said camp influenced their education path. And 40% said camp influenced them to work at a cooperative, which, coincidentally, almost aligns with the 41% of folks that have previously worked at a cooperative or credit union. So these are some of our initial observations from the study. So cooperative youth education programs do help alum learn about the cooperative model, going back to that awareness. I was going in with the into the project with a little bit of skepticism, or part of my brain had this niggling skepticism that you participated in a week-long camp during during your teen years. So I think on average, respondents participated in these programs for about 3 years. So 3 weeks out of 3 years, would that actually lead to transformative change? And would that lead to a lasting engagement with the sector? And we do find that alums are aware of the cooperative model. They are engaged with the sector today in both their personal lives as well as their professional lives, and that camp really, in hindsight, they do believe and do report that camp and their programs impacted their education and career paths. If we can go back really quickly to the membership numbers, we looked at the while not comparing apples to apples, Cooperatives and Mutuals Canada in 2019 did a Canada-wide study whereby they asked, a sample of general population, how many co-ops there, or are they a member of a co-op? And they found that a third of 5,000 people they surveyed were members of one co-op, and that 60% who weren't a member of a co-op would be interested in being a member of a co-op. So if you can see that, 60% of co-op camp alumni are members of two or more co-ops versus a third of the general population that, would be a member of one co-op. Now, that study was done in 2019, and this study was done in 2025, as well as it is a bit of comparing apples to oranges. However, it's an interesting comparison point to see that one of our initial observations is that with youth education, alumni of those education programs, there is some evidence to support that they do become champions of the sector and even leaders of the sector. So more work does need to be done in terms of what factors contribute to high engagement versus low engagement within the cooperative sector amongst these co-op camp alumni. We would also, for this research, would love to do some additional analyses to determine what factors contribute to who amongst these alumni stay in the sector to work within and also take on leadership positions. Are there characteristics that these folks share? And those would be the additional analyses to come. So that is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, thoughts, please feel free to contact and connect with me. My email address I will put also in the Zoom chat later on. But I'll end it off there. I'll pass it back to Marc-Andre and we'll for any questions.
Okay, yes, thanks, Stan. Super interesting. Before we pass it over to the breakout, and after the breakout, there'll be a chance to engage with Stan and ask him questions. And then, of course, you can follow up with emails. I wanted to ask you a bit about limitations, right? So can you speak about the geographic scope? I know we talk about it as a Canada survey, but is it really more of an Ontario, BC survey? Just to be clear, so people understand. And then how representative, even within that geographic space, can you say it is, given that we didn't have the full population of camp participants to pull from? Like we couldn't randomly sample the population. So can you just speak to those two things? Because I think it's important people recognize there are some limitations to this work. We're really speaking about the sample rather than the population. So maybe I can just get you to elaborate a bit on that.
Thanks, Marc-Andre. Definitely, I would say that to your first question, it is a Ontario to BC specific study. I did have conversations with the another organization, Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Cooperatives, that once had a camp, and there's a lot of interest in bringing camp back in Newfoundland and Labrador. However, because of turnover, they didn't even know where to start with regards to surveying, folks in that province. I also spoke with someone from PEI who, again, they had a camp years back. Unfortunately, there's been data loss, memory loss, historical memory loss, and the folks that are, again, trying to have a resurgence of camp. And I would say that in Newfoundland, Labrador, there's the federation behind it. In PEI, there's only like one or two people behind trying to drive an effort to bring camp back. We didn't even know where to start. So it was kind of unfortunately, the conversation started and ended there. Thus, for the sake of clarity, yes, it would be an Ontario to BC study as opposed to a cross Canada study. Secondly, certainly I would say that self-selection is a big factor here. Because of the limitations in finding the entire population of even one of the camp programs to survey, a lot of the responses come from what we call snowball sampling. So we saw a lot of word of mouth of folks that tagged a lot of folks in social media to participate. And so we got responses that way. And so that is a limitation of the study. I wish that we had the Cadillac model to be able to survey alums, but in lieu of that, this hopefully is a conversation starter. Thank you.
Speaking of conversation starters, we're going to do a breakout in just a second. I just want to note something, Stan. I'm not sure if you kind of pulled this up earlier, and I might have missed it, but this survey happens at a time when there's a debate about the existing camps, like the camps that are still functional, right? So Alberta, I understand, has just had a commitment from United Farmers of Alberta to reintroduce a camp there. Saskatchewan's been doing this comic camp. They kind of passed a little bit on their their traditional co-op camp, which had morphed into Kindred, or what was it, Kindling? Kindling was the
Camp
camp?
Kindling,
Camp
yes.
Kindling. BC has a weird amalgam of co-op and other kind of, and then Manitoba's also in this kind of strange hybrid space. And so there's just a lot of change that's been happening in the co-op camp space. And we thought this survey would be timely in that context too. So just a little bit of zooming out perspective. Okay.
That's absolutely right. Yes. And I
Yes.
would
You
also
want to
say
add
that
something there,
wasn't,
Sean?
while it wasn't our initial intent to do this survey because of it, the
Yeah.
timing was one where it does seem like the findings of the study are coming at a critical period whereby the value of camp is an ongoing conversation. And
Yes.
hopefully this contributes to that conversation, knowing that there's a lot of factors outside of our control.
Right on. Okay, so now we're going to break out for about 10 minutes. Dasha, if I can get you to do that. We're going to have a question that you're going to ask, we're going to ask you to answer, which is what experience or moment in your life planted the seed for you to become a cooperator or a co-op supporter, or just a member, right? Was there something, some trigger? Maybe it was co-op camp, maybe it was something else. But just maybe it'd be good to share that with the people that you find yourself in the breakout room, and then it's a good way to tell them about who you are and where you're from and all that good stuff. So Dash, if we can start the breakout room for about 10 minutes, and we'll pop that question into the chat. If we can do that too. And we'll see you back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. That was a lot of fun. We had my breakout. I hope you had fun in your breakout as well. I'm gonna wait and see, make sure Stan's here. There you are. Okay. Okay, so now we'll open it up to questions. Does anyone have a question for Stan? Angel has a question, and then Barat. Okay, they're lining up. Go ahead, Angel. Go
Wow,
first.
get in line. Oh my goodness. I have to choose between all my questions. Okay. My question is, was your research question for this project explicitly about the co-op camps? Or is your research question like broader about alumni of all sorts of cooperatives, but you're slicing off camps as like your first sort of case study?
Thank you, Angel. The camps in Canada, or more specifically Ontario to BC, are the staples. You know, as we mentioned, they've been offered, you know, over 90 years in Saskatchewan until recently, over 60 years in Alberta, 50 years in Ontario. The more I'm reading about camp, the more I'm seeing that, you know, there is such a long lasting tradition that have transpired generations of folks. So the focus of the research was the larger umbrella of cooperative youth education programs, with the understanding that 97% of folks will understand that as being co-op camps. So we use co-op camps as kind of a shorthand for the research, but in terms of the formal title, as well as all of the mentioning of programs within the survey itself, was all wider than that of co-op camps. So that's probably where you saw the extra 7% within the demographics that didn't fit into one of these well-known namesake of camp. And I should mention too, in a recent conference hosted by the Alberta Community and Cooperatives Association, I learned too that some credit unions, some cooperatives actually provide their own kind of one-off or ongoing youth programs that are like smaller, but also more internally kind of like self-managed. I hadn't considered that to be also within the scope of the research, although now knowing that is out there, it certainly also broadens my curiosity in terms of what other programs are offered. But yeah, in terms of the scope, general in parameter, but colloquially co-op camp.
Yeah, and just to clarify, one thing I might add, Stan, is of course you were very focused throughout. You had relationships with the co-op associations who administer the co-op camps, right? So the focus was really, there might have been a little slippage beyond this, but it was really that co-op, even though Stan's right, there's a broader category. Co-op camp is really where the action was at for this research, right? Just to be clear.
Precisely.
Yeah. Okay, Erica, your question. Go ahead.
I think there was another person before me.
Oh, well, I'll go to them next.
But it's okay.
It's random. I mean, I don't know who's
Okay,
first.
okay. I will go.
Yeah.
Following the understanding the study, I would like to know how many alumni are per year in each of the places that you target to survey. Like just to give us a rough idea regarding the sample size. Because it's covering like so many provinces, and I see that it's over 300 respondents. So I just wanted to have an idea of the sample size of it. And the second question, very quickly, is it was very impressive to see that the majority of response have like the impact was in the pursuit of leadership roles. So I wondered if the camps are designed to promote that, or if it's an unintended consequence or not.
Great, thank you, Erica. I'm going to ask an expert who's on the call today, Leanne, who has had, years and years of experience with the Alberta co-op camp there. I think that she would probably be able to answer these two questions more than I have, or more than I can. So Leanne, do you want to chime in and give Erica a sense in terms of like how many alumni graduate each year, and then subsequently, why is pursuing leadership that the rating of it so high?
Hi there, thanks for asking that. In Alberta, our graduates, when the youth program was running, averaged about 24 to 36 grads. And we only had one program for it. Earlier on I want to say the earlier 2000s, that number was a little bit higher, up to like 45. But everything has just been changing. So that answers that question, hopefully. And sorry, what was the second question?
The co-op camp's emphasis on promoting leadership within youth, and subsequently, inspiring them to then pursue leadership roles. What's the secret sauce there?
Actually, can I rectify the question?
Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead, Erica.
Apologies if I got it wrong.
Yeah, no, because it's supposed to be a co-op camp training. I was surprised by the 81% of the pursuing leadership roles. So I was curious to know if there is like an unintended consequence, or if the camp is designed putting more emphasis on the leadership or than in the co-op experience and development of co-ops. Than that I would like to know more details. Thank you.
I think with Alberta, like it was called the ACCA Cooperative Youth Leadership Program. So the emphasis was fairly equal on the cooperatives, cooperation, as well as leadership. They kind of went hand in hand in all the exercises, in all the sessions, in every activity that was done. It was hand in hand. We had a co-op canteen. We also had government. Everything kind of went together. So that's the way specifically the Alberta program went. I know that there are some other, I'm not sure if they're still on the call, some other people that are very familiar with youth programs from across the country. Victoria, I see, is on here, and she's from the YES program in BC. I know Carol Fleming from Ontario is also on here. So maybe they also want to chime in specifically about how their programs went. Kim Schmidt, she was a longtime volunteer at Camp Kindling, the Saskatchewan youth program. So maybe if you guys also want to chime in, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, we'll open it up. Anyone want to jump in really quickly on this question? I think it's a really interesting question, because you might think co-op does not equal leadership, right? There might be that mindset, but of course, they go together in an important way, right? You can be a cooperator and a leader, and you can be a cooperative leader, right? I've met a lot of leaders who have that kind of DNA in them that leads to a different leadership style than you might find in other kinds of businesses. So anyone from that Leanne called out want to jump in really quickly on this, but I do want to get to the other questions. So just a quick interjection if you have a chance.
Jump in. Hi, it's
Yeah.
Victoria, formerly of Saskatchewan in
Oh,
the
Victoria.
Saskatchewan program. Hi, Marc-Andre.
Yeah,
So yeah, I worked for the Saskatchewan program for 16 years and went to many camps. So hi everybody, nice to see you all. So yeah, I would say that it was and Saskatchewan was the first program in Canada, and it was consciously designed to build people's skills so that they could become cooperative leaders as well as community leaders. So leadership, communication, teamwork skills, all really strong. No worries, Leanne. Yeah, definitely a mix of like learning about yourself, learning about how to work with other people, and how, as well as what are cooperatives and credit unions and their values and how they all work together. So it's definitely like a look inside yourself, look to the people that you're in a room or in a group with. And yeah, very consciously designed to address all of those skills you would need to take the lead in whatever you want to do. And lots of people went on to be co-operators as well as community leaders. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Victoria. It's great to see you. Oh my God. So yeah, and of course, Stan at the beginning of his presentation highlighted some of those leaders, like people like Scott Banda, who is actually our university governor, right? Like our chair of our university. So he's playing a chancellor, sorry, playing a really important role here at the university level now too. Okay, I'm going to go to the question. Bharat, you go ahead. You had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So hi, Stan. Nice to see you again. So I saw Stan again and in Montreal, the ICSCC. So
I remember that.
Folks
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again, Stan. So just very quick question. So I think Angel like talked about it in terms of the broader like the broader education as so as an say maybe perhaps the next step, like are you also thinking of looking at this the same the question in terms of the engagement of say people with cooperatives, say at other places, say for example people who have studied cooperatives at university, so people who have had sort of had a longer engagement with cooperatives, what they have, like what has been their engagement say later in life with cooperatives. That's the question just wanted to ask you, Stan. Thanks.
Thank you, Brett. Yes, I think that would be a fantastic research question. I would hypothesize that, folks that have engaged with the sector in some intellectual way or some sort of kind of deeper level of understanding, I would postulate that those are probably the champions of the sector. Not the only, but definitely a group of champions. I think that everyone on this call here, if I gave the survey to you all, the numbers would be as glowing, if not even more glowing than what I found on this study. And then subsequently, I think the other implication of your question, Brad, and one that is really near and dear to my heart is, again, what are the other experiences, or what are the other types of characteristics that other co-op champions share? I think that I've only touched the surface in terms of like who are these individuals, and then hopefully we can continue to identify other opportunities to see who are the folks out there that share kind of the passion for the sector as we do.
Okay, thank you, Stan. Sean, I don't know if you want to ask. I saw your hand up for a while, but it's down now. You can pass if you like, but I just want to give you the opportunity to ask your question if you did. Sean Adair.
Thanks, Marc-Andre. It was more of a bit of a statement on how being in the programs, I could see the decline in corporate support over the years. When I first started, I attended the Saskatchewan Cooperative Youth Program. My dad was the office manager of the Meadow Lake Co-op for 32 years, and he said, "Hey, you're going to camp." I said, "What's this? What's this?" He says, "It's co-op camp. You'll like it." Great. So I went, had a wonderful experience. I was a graduate of that program. They had at the time a speakers bureau program where we went for a weekend to do uh, public speaking workshops. And our commitment to that was 10 presentations back in our community about the programs. At the end of the day, the camps themselves and the programs themselves, they're a component of our sustainability pillar within federated co-ops and our local retail co-ops. The sustainability piece of education. People don't even know what a cooperative is sometimes. And I'm sure you guys are well aware of that. And so this was a great way and a tool to be able to initiate some of that cooperative work. Most people think co-op and it's the sign over the gas bar, and they're thinking about federated co-op within the prairie provinces. But most people don't know anything about other types of cooperatives and the farming cooperatives, recycling cooperatives, home cooperatives, and the list goes on. I don't have to preach to this group, but my main concern over the demise of our camps and educational tools was that corporate support changed. And I get it. Like when I first started and attended ACCA camps as a camp counselor, I got paid a per diem. And the per diem was more money than I made at my job. And over the years it went away. And so then as a young dad and young family, I took one of my 3 weeks vacation to go. And that didn't include the 2 or 3 days for staff planning. So half of my vacation time was spent going to training for the staff, as well as to help facilitate staff planning with Leanne and Lacey and Victoria. So shout out to those gals. We're connected at least through Facebook friends still, but geographically we're a little further apart. So my main concern is how do we, if we see value in camps, how do we express that corporate support for people to be involved in it? Not, just us as we love it, we can be champions, but there's a cost to that, and how people invest with their time as well and things they love. I certainly did, but
Thanks, John. That's great way to kind of wrap things up. I think I'm going to leave it hanging out there because we're running out of time. I'm going to be respectful of that time. One thing I did want to say, just on Erica's question, I mean, we're standing in your report, because I've read a draft now. I think at one time there were maybe it was Saskatchewan, there were upwards of 200 kids going through the camp, right?
Yeah.
And so just to get a sense of the arc over time as it's been declining. And Victoria could probably speak to that a little bit, that longer term perspective. But
for sure. Yeah, part of that was when the wheat pool became not a co-op, because they had regional staff all over Saskatchewan that would promote and recruit. So that was a big factor. Some of it's changing demographics, some of it's more competition from science camp and drama camp and other options, as well as these little cell phones and kids having jobs, and there's a lot of factors, but yeah, for sure, even in the 70s when the baby boomers went through, it was more like 600 or 700 kids a year in Saskatchewan. So part of it, things have changed a lot, which has made it really challenging, and that's part of how it ended up where it is now.
Thank you, Victoria. That's important historical context. Thank you all for being here today and participating in this really fun and interesting conversation. And it's so great to see so many of you I haven't seen in a long time. Before we wrap up, I want to tell you that we have Dr. Marie Bouchard, a long-standing, well-known Canadian, Quebec-based co-op researcher who's going to speak to some of her work on the social and solidarity economy. She has a book coming out in the near future with a co-author who's a colleague of or friend of the center's on the social economy. I think it's going to be a really great talk, and we'll have an online but also in-person component if you're here in town in Saskatoon. Our next co-op conversation, and that's happening, on December 17th from 4 to 5:30 Saskatchewan time. On January 7th, we're having Mary Nirlungayuk. Mary is the Vice President, Governance and Member Relations at Arctic Co-ops, one of the stellar, awesome co-ops in Canada. Work with people in the far north, and she's going to talk about her work helping to found and develop the International Indigenous Cooperative Network. And so I think this is going to be a really great talk too, and that's going to be on January 7th. Always the first Wednesday of the month is our goal. So with that, I'm going to thank you all again for attending today. We're going to share out the recording in short order. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.